the 3.5 litre Tyrrell of Jonathan Palmer, 17th on the grid. His teammate Julian Bailey has qualified and is 24th on the grid on a circuit that he knows extremely well. We still, of course, have the parade lap to go when they blast off with Gerhard Berger there in pole position in the evocative Scarlet Ferrari, and his teammate Michele Alboreto alongside him on the left. Now this is, now you will see what I mean when I talk about spray. You'll see that these heavy rear tyres, there it is, imagine being behind the two Ferraris. It's going to give them an enormous benefit when they start the race.
Yes, absolutely, Murray, and I picked up a little bit on when you talked about seeing the rear light with the car in front, and quite honestly, if you do, but the spray is so thick that if you see the rear light of the car in front, it's because you're about a split second from hitting it. The spray really covers even that powerful rear light that they wear. However, the rain at least has eased off a bit, and the spray is not as bad as it can be when the track is really flooded. And I think that picture gives you a pretty clear indication of just what the visibility is. Basically, the drivers know the track very well, and to see where they're going when they're following other cars, you literally have to look for landmarks on the side of the track, because you cannot see forwards at all. So you know when you get into a corner by looking at whatever catches your eye at the side. Now this race will be very interesting in these conditions, because as we've seen all season, McLaren have dominated the Grand Prix so far, courtesy particularly of the efficiency of their Honda engine. And we do know that Ferrari, when running full power, as we saw in qualifying...
Berger stops. I noticed him slowing down. Is he just practicing a racing start?
Practice start, yeah, to get the feel of it in the wet. But at full power, Ferrari now have caught up with Honda and will be very competitive, and because this race is wet, the fuel consumption is of course much better, and therefore the turbo cars will be able to run pretty much full power throughout the race, and that will bring Ferrari a lot closer to McLaren, because had it been dry, I think McLaren would probably have gone into the distance again, even though they didn't qualify as well. But these wet conditions will definitely balance the power of the Ferrari and Honda engines.
So, a historic sight in 1988, the front row of the grid occupied by, on the left-hand side, the Scarlet Ferrari in pole position of Austrian Gerhard Berger. Down below, and into the pits goes one of the Tyrrells, it's Jonathan Palmer. Jonathan Palmer has peeled off into the pits. He will be starting, therefore, from the pit lane. There he is in the pit lane. So now they are all in position. The last one has come up onto the grid, and the last one is Nicola Larini. The lights are on. And it's go, and a good start by Michele Alboreto. As they sprint down towards Copse, it is Berger leading, Alboreto second, Prost third, it is Capelli in fourth position, Gugelmin fourth, and Capelli fifth. But already Senna has got ahead of Gugelmin and up into fourth place. Round Copse corner, down towards Maggots, the left-hander. So it's the Ferraris first and second. It's Berger leading. Senna is blasted past Alboreto and up into second place. So already Ayrton Senna, who was quickest in the dry warm-up this morning and subsequently quick in the final wet quarter of an hour, is up into second.
Yes, and a very tentative start by Alain Prost. He got off the line all right, but I think the spray got the better of him. He couldn't see where he was going, and Senna attacking into Stowe, and Berger shuts the door. So the two young lions out front, and these young men in these conditions are liable to show a lot more bravery, and there's the car off.
And Jonathan Palmer in the pit still, so it looks as though his race is over before it even began.
Now the very experienced Alain Prost, I think, got caught up in the spray because he got off the line quite well, and then he dropped right back when he couldn't see where he was going.
So out of Woodcote they come, and there's quite a gap now between Senna and Alboreto who is third. And leading at the end of lap 1, Gerhard Berger. Ayrton Senna is second. Alboreto is in third position. In fourth place is Gugelmin. Fifth is Capelli. Sixth is Nannini. Seventh is Nigel Mansell, who has got ahead of Boutsen. Warwick is next. And there goes Alessandro Nannini.
And Alan Prost is in trouble. He's got some sort of a misfire, so it wasn't Prost being tentative in the spray. I maligned him. His engine sounded very rough as he went past our commentary position just then, and the car was going clearly slowly. So Prost sounded a bit like a case of a waterlogged engine.
And Berger has passed Palmer, who has rejoined the race from the pits. Senna has been delayed getting past Palmer. That's given Berger an opportunity to pull away a little. We are on lap 2. Effectively, it looks as though we're down to one McLaren already on the second lap in this 65-lap British Grand Prix in truly appalling conditions. Now Senna, who drove magnificently on that first lap to carve up to second place, has got that gigantic ball of spray represented by Berger's Ferrari in front of him, and it's going to be a maximum courage job to get near to Berger, the leader. There is Alain Prost, well down the field ahead of A. Williams. Whether it was Mansell or not, I don't know, but it's Berger leading. Senna is second, then a long gap as Michele Alboreto comes up in third place.
And you saw very well there how Senna pulled out from behind, and that's Alboreto just passing Palmer, who of course lost that lap in the pits at the start. Saw how Senna pulled out of the spray, so at least he could see where he was going, but of course he has to tuck back in again as they get to the corner to pick up the line.
You will see a drier line start to emerge a bit because all the cars tend to be on the same part of the circuit. That is Capelli in the march, and he is in fifth place.
Yes, well, the drier line won't stay dry for long, because I'm just looking at the glass on our commentary box, and it's now appears to be raining hard again.
Palmer, there is Palmer, rejoin, and coming up to take him is Maurizio Gugelmin, still in fourth place. Race order, lap 3, Gerhard Berger leading, Senna second, Alboreto third, then Gugelmin, Capelli, Nannini, and Mansell is seventh. Yes,
and Mansell's really having a go. Mansell's always liked the wet, and Mansell's past Capelli, so Mansell really charging. These conditions, of course, will suit him to use his driving skills. The relative lack of power of the Atmo car is nullified to a certain extent by the wet.
So here is Gerhard Berger leading with Senna in second place there, taking a look and falling back in third position. It's Michele Alboreto across the line, Ferrari's first and third. Then it is the march of Gugelmin in fourth position. Nannini is fifth. Nigel Mansell is in the points. Now here is the gap in third to third position. There goes Michele Alboreto in third place. Here he is.
And he's already 8 seconds behind Ayrton Senna.
Yes, the race is between these two, without a doubt. These two being Berger in the Ferrari, Senna in the McLaren. Just look at this gap as through the spray towards us comes Michele Alboreto in third place. Now we wait for Gugelmin. This is him right behind Gugelmin, and really flying is Alessandro Nannini, who is in fifth place. That is Nigel Mansell in the points for the first time this year. That is Capelli in seventh place. Behind Capelli is Palmer, who has been lapped, but eighth on the course at the moment is Derek Warwick. Ninth is Piquet, 10th is Nakajima, 11th is Chiva, and 12th is Thierry Boutsen as you look at Jonathan Palmer. Another lap completed. Berger, here he is coming down to Copse, the right-hander.
And a really huge lead now Berger and Senna have got. The two young chargers of the Ferrari and McLaren team going away from Alboreto at a huge speed. 4 laps completed, 11 seconds Senna is ahead of Alboreto, and we haven't had a chance to see what Prost could do in these difficult conditions because his engine sounds really rough.
Yes, 11 seconds between Senna in second place and Michele Alboreto in third position. Berger.
And the other man to watch here, of course, is Alessandro Nannini, as you pointed out, Murray, really flying in the Benetton and underlining his talent, because he joined the team with Thierry Boutsen, who some people have rated certainly a very competent journeyman driver in Formula One, but Nannini has really shown a lot of talent this season.
And hats off too to Maurizio Gugelmin in fourth place ahead of Alessandro Nannini. There he is. This is the battle for fourth place. Maurizio Gugelmin, the young Brazilian, higher in a Grand Prix than he has ever been, thanks to the slippery march. Nothing wrong with the Judd engine. It's really punching out the power. And of course, today's wet, cool conditions will suit that engine very well indeed. It has had a tendency in the past this year to overheat, but it certainly won't be doing that today. Gugelmin then in fourth position, followed by the Benetton of Alessandro Nannini, fifth.
Yes, of course, there's fastest lap for Berger, captioned up there. That's one of the things that the wet does do for us, in that, of course, there's much less mechanical strain on the cars. They're on the power less, and so quite apart from the engines not overheating, all the components of the car have a much easier day of it, and so we get much greater reliability. So hopefully we should have a lot more cars running at the finish.
And there are two of them. It's still the battle between Maurizio Gugelmin, the ex-Formula 3000 driver, ex-Formula 3 champion of Britain, driving for the Dick Bennett's West Surrey Racing team in Formula 3, that was Alboreto in front. So between Alboreto and Gugelmin there is 4 seconds. Between Gugelmin, who is fourth, and Nannini, who is fifth, there is about half a second.
Yes, and Nannini is clearly trying to get past Gugelmin. He could clearly go quicker if he could do it, but these conditions with the bad visibility, the spray, you can't really see anything at all, and it will require a certain amount of shutting the eyes and praying to overtake a car of similar speed.
Now, Ayrton Senna is lapping marginally quicker than Gerhard Berger in the lead, trying to close the gap about 3/10 of a second quicker, as Nannini really challenges Maurizio Gugelmin as they come through to complete a lap.
And I think this is it. Nannini's in a position to attack. He's having a go. Ooh. Trouble is, of course, that there is a little bit less water on the racing line, which Gugelmin had. Nannini had to move onto the wet a bit, and I think probably that daunted him a little, because he was in a good position then.
This is the closest contest in the race at the moment. Berger is now 1.7 seconds on lap 7 ahead of Ayrton Senna, who is 17 seconds ahead of third place man Michele Alboreto, coming towards us. Now look for the battle for fourth.
Yes, and right behind that battle is Nigel Mansell waiting to pick up the pieces. We saw him on the last shot. And in fact he's catching them.
Nigel, when he got out of the conventionally suspended Williams yesterday after practice, was like a man reborn. He had been so low on Friday that I was worried about him actually starting in the race. But now he's in a car that he knows, because it's got conventional suspension. He's in a car which he can confidently drive at the limit, because he's not going to be worried about it suddenly collapsing on him. And my goodness, it is showing. Nigel Mansell's driving ability has never been a doubt this season of 1988. He's had all the fire and vigour and determination that he's had in the past, and he's lost none of his skill. What's been holding him up is the equipment when he's got the right car. There's Alboreto third. There is Gugelmin in the march in fourth. Nannini fifth, and Nigel Mansell, red 5, in the Williams Judd in sixth position, and the gap between Gugelmin and Mansell is about 2 seconds, that's all.
And Nannini will be well aware of Mansell's form looming in his mirrors, and that will put more pressure on him to have a go at Gugelmin, who is definitely holding him up. And I really think that if Nannini could only get past Gugelmin, and he's having a look, but he's not close enough. He's got he's got to get close to the chicane and try and make his overtaking manoeuvre at either Copse or Beckett. It needs a run, though. It's really a two-corner combination effort to get past somebody here in these conditions.
So, British March leads British Benetton, leads British Williams for 4th, 5th and 6th places. And in that 4th place, 25-year-old Maurizio Gugelmin, who has been driving for 16 years of his 25. And once again, Nannini, as they come into the chicane and out of it, closes right up. This is the 4DFR engined V8 Benetton against the V8 Judd. And don't forget that in front of these three, battling for 4th place, it's still 2 Ferraris and a McLaren, with Berger leading on lap 9, leading Ayrton Senna by 1.5 seconds. Senna is 20 seconds ahead of the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto, who is 4 seconds ahead of Maurizio Gugelmin, followed by Nannini, followed by Mansell. In 7th place, it is Ivan Capelli in the 2nd March. In 8th position, it's Derek Warwick in the Arrows Megatron. 9th is Piquet, 10th is Boutsen, 11th is Nakajima, 12th is Chiva, and in 13th place, it is Patrese. Brownstow corner into club.
One of the problems, of course, with all this spray is the closer you go to the car in front, the worse your visibility gets. And certainly Nannini really needs to get very close to Gugelmin going into the corners, which is the one point where you can't, because if he brakes a little bit or in any place differently to the one you expect, you hit him up the back, because here going into the chicane is one of the overtaking points. But Nannini and Gugelmin went a little bit wide on the exit then. Can Gugelmin get sorry, Gugelmin went wide, but Nannini didn't manage to take advantage.
And as Alboreto goes into Copse and the battle for 4th follows, a quick update. Jonathan Palmer had to go into the pits with a misfire, which hopefully has been corrected because he is back in the race. And off goes Philippe Streff. Philippe Streff in the AGS. The Frenchman runs off the course. And
yes,
you can see the rear wing's gone askew.
Yes, that had been askew for a while, Murray. I think probably that took him off the course, but it must have come adrift a couple of laps earlier.
So we're back with Gerhard Berger leading the British Grand Prix on lap 10 out of 65. And you can see that Senna is not making any inroads into the Ferrari's lead as Berger comes up to lap Yannick Dalmas in the 3.5-litre Lola. This is Copse corner. They take it even today at about 120 miles an hour. There is the Ferrari, and it is very significant that John Barnard, the British engineer, who is now very much in charge of the Ferrari racing team, as De Cesaris comes into the pits, Andrea De Cesaris in the German Real with its British engine. John Barnard, the Ferrari director of racing, is now very much in charge and is here at Silverstone, and the Ferraris are definitely getting better. They've got the power here. Because they've got the power here doesn't necessarily mean to say they will do as well at Hockenheim for the German Grand Prix, because that's got some twisty bits in it.
Yes, I'm just looking at the weather. The rain has now stopped for the moment. The line is beginning to dry out. You can probably see that on the pictures. There's De Cesaris being pushed in, so not a good day for Real. We already saw Streff's car part with the rear wing askew, and there is Senna going through, still hounding Berger, but at the moment with no apparent answer. He, of course, is very much blinded by the spray, and same problem that you have all the way down the field. When as soon as he gets close, his visibility drops dramatically, and he just really can't see where he's going.
Well, as you watch Ayrton Senna, some of you may be wondering what has happened to Alain Prost. Well, I can't tell you what's happened to him. I can tell you where he is. He is in 15th place at the present moment, well down.
The only thing I can add to that is that his engine sounds very rough indeed. He's got a bad misfire, and I suspect it's waterlogged electrics.
And Alan Prost's disadvantage will be Senna's benefit, because Prost, of course, is leading the World Championship very considerably. Now, that is Michele Alboreto, carrying the famous number 27, which so many top drivers have carried in their careers. And Alboreto now in an easy third position in the British Grand Prix in the rejuvenated Ferrari. But it looks to me as though the battle for fourth place, indeed it is. It's less than 3 seconds behind Alboreto. And here is the battle for fourth. Gugelmin, Nannini, and Mansell. And Mansell has dropped back. There are third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And Gugelmin has actually got an advantage here, of course. It is that he is driving with a comparatively clear track in front of him, because the gap between himself and Alboreto is such that the spray has cleared a bit by the time he's motoring, whereas Nannini, tight up behind Gugelmin, is taking the heavy spray. And you notice he closes right up on the slower corner.
Yes, it's what he does on the exit that matters right here, because his best chance of passing is into Copse, but Nannini is not close enough. What he should do is try not to close up so much into the corner, but get a good clean line out so that he can attack at Copse corner. And I think Nannini's showing a little bit of inexperience there. He's tending to he appears to be driving without a planned approach. He's just going as quick as he can where he can, instead of plotting to get past Gugelmin, and that's what is required in these conditions. He should go slowly into the chicane under the bridge, try and power out a bit fast to get alongside going into Copse.
Lap 13, and Gugelmin and Nannini challenging the Italian as they go into Stowe, are getting ever closer now to Michele Alboreto.
See, it's a mistake, Nannini, trying to pass him there, because he's never going to do it, and all he does is lose ground. He should, at this point on the circuit, be positioning himself, and he's also laying himself open to attack from Mansell, which Mansell is doing beautifully. And Mansell having a look up the inside into Abbey.
And while you're watching Nigel Mansell in 6th place, the news is that the fastest lap so far has been that of Gerhard Berger, 1 minute 25.01.
Well, he's just gone quicker, 24.2 on the lap he's just finished, and so is Senna, and that rather indicates that we're getting a bit of a dry line. And as I say that, I'm just having a look, but I think it started to rain again.
Yeah, that is some 11 seconds outside the lap record, which is not at all bad going, to put it mildly, in these conditions. And now Nicola Larini in the Osella is being caught by Michele Alboreto, who is followed there by Gugelmin, and Nannini going right up alongside almost the march. But Gugelmin closes the door as they go round Abbey up towards the complex. Now, if Alboreto can get past Larini before the complex, as he is going to do, and he has done, it will give him an advantage. And I think Nigel Mansell now is going to be right up with Nannini, who goes past Larini. All these Enis are very confusing, but it's still Alboreto third. There's the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. March Judd, Benetton Ford, Williams Judd. And I think Mansell is going to get past Nannini before Nannini gets past Gugelmin.
Yes, I do too, because Nannini has always impressed me with his talent. And Mansell having a look, Mansell had a look to get inside. But what Nannini has done, not only in this race, but at Imola earlier this year and in various races this season, whilst he's impressed me with his talent, he's unimpressed me with his intelligence. He doesn't seem to go about it. He's having a look, but he's not doing it with any coherent plan.
Well, let's just watch. And look at this. Ayrton Senna has got past Gerhard Berger. We've been looking at this titanic battle for third, fourth, fifth and sixth places. And Ayrton Senna on lap 14 is ahead of Gerhard Berger. Now, does this mean to say that already the Austrian is having to taper off his power with the boost control because of fuel consumption? I would be surprised if that's the reason, because in today's conditions, fuel consumption should not be as much of a problem. But you can see now the way Ayrton Senna is fairly pulling away from Gerhard Berger, and you can see that in the background, Alboreto in the second Ferrari is catching the lead Ferrari, which is actually in second place, that of Gerhard Berger.
Yes, well, there's no danger that he'd have to be throttling back on boost at this stage, because he'd have a credit on fuel even if the track was bone dry right now. But I strongly suspect that a back mark was involved. Of course, like you at home, we missed the manoeuvre. We didn't see what happened, but they were amongst the traffic. And, well, we'll find out now. We've got an action replay. And, well, we saw it exactly. That was...
Well, it's Senna lapping Prost with Berger right behind him, because
Senna was already in front. Senna was already in front of Berger. So that wasn't the overtaking manoeuvre. That was just lapping Prost.
Well, the news from that indication is definitely that poor Alain Prost is very much in trouble and probably effectively out of the race, because he has now been lapped. And on lap 16, Ayrton Senna is 1.7 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, with Michele Alboreto 32 seconds behind them in third place. This is Berger, and it looks as though Ayrton Senna brilliantly has made his break, and now with a clear circuit in front of him, because he's still got some time before he starts lapping people, he can exploit that condition. Berger is the only challenge to the McLaren, so we might be on our way to yet another McLaren win, the 8th in 8 races, but there's still a long way to go, because we are on lap 17. It's a 65-lap race, and as you can see, Gerhard Berger is certainly not giving up. I believe that it was just somebody being in the way that enabled Senna to sail through, as Prost got in front of Senna in France, and Jonathan Palmer is out of the British Grand Prix because he retires, and this is lap 17.
Yes, I'm sure it was a traffic problem. We saw the confusion there on that action replay with Prost. And the Eurobrun
So here we are, here is Ayrton Senna coming up behind Gerhard Berger and about to lap Alain Prost. Senna passes Berger, tucks in front of the Ferrari. They both pull out to take Alain Prost and lap him, and I can tell you that while all that has been going on, there has been a change behind them, because Alessandro Nannini has been passed by both Mansell and Gugelmin.
Yes, and that was clearly a case of Berger being held up by the two slower cars as they came out of Abbey Corner. He had to lift off the throttle, and Senna took his chance, was able to hold on the power with the little gap he had behind Berger and sailed through, and then he used teammate Alain Prost, who's being lapped because he's in engine trouble, used Prost to just help confirm his lead.
And it's all action behind them, because the status quo has been replaced, and it's Senna now leading Berger. Alboreto Nannini is still fourth, Mansell is now fifth, Gugelmin is down to 6th position, and Capelli is in 7th place. So there is Ayrton Senna leading. There is Gerhard Berger in 2nd position. We are on now lap 19 out of 65. Look at the enormous gap as Stefano Modena comes towards us. That is Alex Cathy. There is Alain Prost, well down the field. In fact, Alain Prost at the moment is in 16th place. Race order: Ayrton Senna leads, Berger second, Alboreto third, Nannini is fourth, Mansell is fifth, Gugelmin is sixth, Capelli is seventh, Piquet is eighth, Boutsen is ninth, Warwick is 10th, Nakajima is 11th, Chiva is 12th, Patrese is 13th, and everybody up to Riccardo Patrese in 13th place has been lapped. As there, Nakajima, followed by Eddie Chiva, 11th and 12th. Now, there is Senna lapping Patrese. You can see how close Gerhard Berger is behind him as they come up to complete the 19th lap. I'll give you the gap between Ayrton Senna, the leader, and Gerhard Berger, second, as they complete the lap. It is 1.3 seconds only.
Yes, and Senna will have been very grateful to Patrese for getting between them at the chicane, or letting him pass. A little bit of a breather. Now, a new problem is developing for the drivers because the rain is holding off at the moment, and the racing line is beginning to get dry enough to start wearing these very soft compound wet tires. They're a much softer compound than the dry tires, obviously, with the water to cool them, but when the track gets dry, they fall apart pretty quickly.
Well, we've been looking at this empty corner quite deliberately so that you could judge the enormous gap, because there is Alboreto in third place, Nannini is in fourth place, Mansell there is in fifth position, and behind Nigel Mansell in sixth place is Maurizio Gugelmin, who is dropping back. He's now 4 seconds behind Mansell. Now there is the gap, 41 seconds between Gerhard Berger in second place and Michele Alboreto there in third position. But just as Senna and Berger are out on their own, as they were in the reverse order earlier on, we've got a wonderful battle for third, fourth, fifth between Alboreto, Nannini and Mansell, with Gugelmin not far behind them. And there is Alboreto. He's been caught by Nannini, who is right up now on the gearbox of the Ferrari, and taking him, and Mansell is getting past both of them. Oh, fantastic! Nigel Mansell is ahead of Nannini. He's up behind Alboreto, and Nannini spins. He's overdone it, and he's lost time there, and that means that Maurizio Gugelmin moves up a place as well, as they both come through to take Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi.
Yes, and Nannini didn't lose a lot of time, but it brings into question once again his intelligence, because superb piece of driving by Nigel Mansell, I should say. Now, Nannini gets alongside, and then look at Mansell duck out to the left as we look at it. He's inside. Nannini is now confused because he's got Mansell one side. He's in a sandwich. He brakes too hard. Alboreto slams the door on Mansell. I don't think Alboreto had really expected Mansell to be there. Nigel saw it, and Nannini, just basically when nobody was really interfering with him, I think got confused and just let the car go. And we saw him spin at Imola in a similar situation. He's quick and he's talented, but how clever is he?
Well, I'll tell you, Nigel Mansell is clever, mucho clever, because he's in fourth position at the moment, and he is only 1 second behind that Ferrari, and it's the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto with the vortices streaming from the rear wing, from the spray coming up from the rear wheels, and Mansell is in there fighting. He's got a power disadvantage with the Judd against the Ferrari engine, but that is nullified by the wet conditions and the fact that Mansell has really got the red mist, I'm sure, because he's had a really miserable season. He has yet to finish this year, never mind finish in the points. And when Mansell's in a fighting mood, and I remind you that he won the British Grand Prix last year, he won the British Grand Prix the year before, he's in front of his home crowd, and that must give him an extra 20 or 30 horsepower.
I tell you what, Murray, he's really enjoying himself. He's having a decent race at last. The conditions are right. The wet weather nullifies car advantages to a large extent, gives him a chance to drive, and he's driving well, not so much through courage and determination, but I'm sure through sheer pleasure, he's really enjoying himself.
And I say again, he's got rid of the dreaded reactive suspension. Nigel Mansell started with Lotus with their active suspension. He did all the test work on it. He learned to loathe it. He didn't like it when Williams used it. Piquet used it first last year in winning the Italian Grand Prix. Now Mansell's back with the old firm in the form of conventional springs and shocker suspension, which gives him the feel of the car, and he's going for Alboreto. He's going for Alboreto. He's taking Alboreto. Nigel Mansell is in third position. He's gone up from 7th to 6th, to 4th to 5th, and now to 3rd, and this is lap 23.
Yeah, he's certainly enjoying himself, because when you're really enjoying it, it doesn't half make you drive well, and Nigel Mansell is driving absolutely superbly. He's getting the very best he can out of the car, and he'll be pleased about that, because Nannini has repassed Gugelmin after his little spin, and I would expect him to catch Alboreto quite quickly, but Mansell should be able to use the Ferrari as a buffer. There is Nannini in the background, you just saw him, so he's not very far behind.
Lap 3, Senna leads Berger by 2.6 seconds. Berger is 46 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell. Mark that number, 46. We'll be watching it very carefully for you. Michele Alboreto is just about a second now behind Mansell in 4th place. Nannini is in 5th place. This is race leader Ayrton Senna, and Gugelmin is 6th. And here is some really dramatic information for you. The man you are watching, Ayrton Senna, is using too much fuel. We have just had a privileged message from the McLaren pit, which tells us that Senna is using too much fuel. He's been given a signal to tell him to wind down the boost and use less fuel. Gerhard Berger is but 4 seconds behind him.
Yes, the only problem about the privileged information is that we don't have information from the Ferrari pit about how much Berger's using, and I strongly suspect that in the fight that they're having together, that Berger has used at least as much.
We've also got another very, very interesting fact to pass on to you as you see Berger in the background getting closer. And that is that Alain Prost has got instrumentation problems, particularly concerning how much fuel he is using, and he is being guided from the pits using, by telemetry, which the Honda engineers are able to employ, information coming from Senna's car. And here's Senna coming through in the lead, and Berger getting closer.
I can understand instrumentation problems about what to do. I can't understand why those cause a misfire. I think that's Honda giving us a load of BS, as they say, because, quite honestly, that doesn't cause the misfire, and Prost has clearly got a misfire.
And Berger clearly hasn't. Here he is, flying in 2nd position. Fastest lap so far in the race is now Gerhard Berger, 1:24.24. You will remember that previously I said 1 minute 25, and so Gerhard Berger is going marginally faster. We are now on lap 25. Perhaps the course is a little bit drier, and that will help. And between Senna and Berger, you can see the gap, and you can see on your caption that it is 4.7 seconds in terms of time. And they are 46 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. Sorry, Mansell is 46 seconds behind Gerhard Berger, 2 seconds ahead of Alboreto, 3 seconds ahead of Nannini, 9 seconds ahead of Gugelmin. And the race order on this, the 25th lap, with 40 laps to go, is Ayrton Senna leading, Berger 2nd. There is Gerhard Berger, the man who this season for Ferrari has already finished 2nd in Brazil and Monaco and 3rd in Mexico, and he is 2nd ahead of Nigel Mansell, 47 seconds. Then Michele Alboreto, 4th. Nannini is in 5th position. In 6th position, it is Gugelmin. Capelli 7th, Piquet 8th, Boutsen 9th, Warwick 10th, Nakajima 11th, Chiva is in 12th position, and Senna has lapped everybody up to 9th position man Thierry Boots.
We're getting to a point now in the race where it hasn't rained for a little while, and these wet weather tyres, made out of a particularly soft rubber compound, of course, because they expect a cold track, where the drivers who start to remember the tyres, and you saw Mansell going, and Alain Prost is coming into the pits with right opposite us, so Prost, his misfire has probably finally got the better of him. But going back to the wet weather tyre problem, the drivers who now pay attention to cooling the tyres down, looking after the compound, and that involves heading for the wet patches on the straight when they don't need grip, will have an advantage later in the race if it doesn't rain.
And Alain Prost retires from the British Grand Prix, the man who has won 4 Grand Prix this year and is leading the World Championship, hits bad luck for the first time in 1988, and Rory Byrne in the green jacket, the Benetton chief technician, walks away as Prost's car is pushed back into the pits. And now there is only one McLaren, but this is the battle for 3rd, 4th, 5th, which is following Senna and Berger, and it's Nigel Mansell. There is Nannini. Alboreto, of course, is ahead of them in 3rd position. Sorry, Mansell is, of course, in 3rd position. There is Alboreto in the background. Mansell 3rd, Nannini 4th.
And both these drivers are thinking, because they have both doing what I was just talking about, which was looking for the wet patches. You saw Nannini do it first by going off the line on the straight to find wet patches. You saw Mansell do it there, looking for the wet patch. And this is a replay of Nannini passing Alboreto to get up to this chase of Mansell. This happened a lap or 2 ago. Now, 2 laps ago, Nannini gets past Alboreto, and now he and Mansell are battling for the lead of the Atmo race, the normally atmosphere cars, and there they are. Nannini now starting to hound Nigel Mansell. It's very important, though, to look for the wet bits on the straights, to keep those wet tyres as cool as possible. They'll be starting to really hurt in a moment.
And they are 54 seconds behind Senna, the leader, and 48 seconds behind Berger in 2nd position. This is a marvellous battle for 3rd position. Marvellous not only because of Nigel Mansell being there, but because Nannini is right up tight behind him. Frank Williams sitting, watching the monitors in the Williams pit, and in particular, of course, Mansell, because Patrese, his other driver, is in 13th place, has already been lapped. In fact, Senna has now lapped everybody, up to Thierry Boutsen in the 2nd Benetton, who is in 9th position. And the gap between Senna and Berger is constantly increasing. The Brazilian on his way to his 4th Grand Prix victory, to mirror image the success of Alain Prost, who has already won 4 Grand Prix for McLaren this year, is 7 seconds ahead of Berger, who is 40 seconds ahead of Mansell, who is 3rd, and there he is. You can see the gap between Mansell 3rd and the Benetton Ford of Italian Alessandro Nannini. Alboreto is 5th and dropping back, and Gugelmin is only 4 seconds in the march, in 6th place behind Michele Alboreto, who is 5th.
Nannini really looking for a way round Mansell, although so far he hasn't shown any real sign of having an answer to that problem. I would have thought there might be a case for Nannini to sit back and keep his tyres cool for a little while, allow Mansell, if he will, to get the tyre trouble, but Nannini having a look down the inside into Club Corner.
Well, our information system's working very well. I can tell you that Alain Prost retired from the British Grand Prix on lap 26 because he had appalling handling problems, which in his opinion was so bad that it just wasn't worth going on. And Nannini goes for it now, and through. Alessandro Nannini taking advantage of the fact that Nigel Mansell had moved across to find a wetter part of the course to help keep his tyres cool. dived in and is now up into third place and already pulling away from Mansell. Senna leads, Berger second, Nannini third in the Benetton Ford. Mansell in fourth position. In the background, Michele Alboreto in fifth place, and in sixth position, Gugelmin.
Yes, and Mansell moved away, went the long way round looking for water to cool his tyres. Nannini just took the straight line, and it was a good thing he wasn't listening to what I said earlier, because he's passed Mansell, and the way he was hounding him, I would think that Alessandro Nannini could pull away.
An interesting thing about this juncture of the race, and we're coming up to the half-distance point, this is lap 29 out of 65, is that the turbo cars have by no means got it entirely their own way.
Little twitch from Nannini then through Stowe, right on the limit, but he held it well. He was using every inch of the road, had to really fight the car to stop it sliding out too far.
Senna leading in the turbocharged McLaren, Berger second in the turbocharged Ferrari, then Nannini and Mansell, there they go, in their 3.5 litre normally aspirated Ford and Judd-powered cars respectively, third and fourth. Then it's the turbo Ferrari of Alboreto, fifth, the normally aspirated engine car of Gugelmin, sixth, and the object of the regulations changes in 1988, which gave the turbo cars less fuel and less boost in comparison with the 3.5 litre cars, was to even out the performance. And it's happened to some extent here, although of course Ayrton Senna has got a very commanding lead. And look at that, Nannini now in the 3.5 litre Ford engined Benetton, the fastest man on the course.
And that comes as no real surprise. Nannini's been hounding everybody in the race. If anything, he's been a bit bereft of ideas about how to get past them, but he's now past Mansell. He doesn't look like he's really going to threaten Senna and Berger, because they've got such a big lead already, but at the moment he is the fastest man on the course, and he's taking Nigel Mansell along with him, and Mansell's certainly using his head a lot. He's taking a lot of trouble to cool his tyres, and this won't help him much at the moment, but in 15 or 20 laps time, if we get no more rain, it may be a big advantage to Nigel if he's kept those tyres. And Nannini having another spin. Dear oh dear, he was always late into the corner.
That's Nannini's race unless he can keep it running, and marvellously he has succeeded in doing so, and he's now off for a little jaunt around Silverstone to rejoin the course. Now, I said it was the end of his race unless he kept it running, because if you don't keep momentum over those shingle traps, you sink into them, which is the object of the exercise. But as far as Mansell is concerned, as Nannini throws out bits of chipping and gravel from the front, Mansell is back in third, Nannini is fourth, and Alboreto is fifth.
Yes, that was a spectacular shot of Nannini throwing the gravel out. Here is a replay. Now Nannini gets it crossed up under braking. He brakes too late, and that really goes exactly back to what I was saying, that it brings into question the guy's intelligence, because he was pulling away from Mansell. He did not need, there are no prizes for braking late, which is where he made his mistake, and really that was Nannini's shown a lot of talent this year, but an awful lack of brain power so far. Maybe he will learn, but if he's going to, he's better start quickly.
Well, in this fascinating race, Maurizio Gugelmin now is catching Alboreto. And there is Michele Alboreto in the Scarlet Ferrari, who is in fifth position. Behind him is Maurizio Gugelmin, the fighting Brazilian in the March Judd. This is by far their best Grand Prix meeting, the March team. Fifth and sixth on the grid, Gugelmin and Capelli, and Capelli is in ninth position, and now Gugelmin is challenging the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto for fifth position. Alain Prost, well, he's out of the car, and now the tension is being eased out of his muscles by the McLaren masseur. And for the first time this season, it will be a mildly despondent Alain Prost, although he's realistic enough to know that you can't win them all or finish second in them all. He's had 32 wins in his incredible career, and Silverstone 1988 was clearly destined not to be the 33rd. Michele Alboreto fighting now for that 5th position. Virtually nothing in it. Race order, lap 32, which is as near as makes no difference, the half-distance lap. There it is. Senna leading, Berger second, 12 seconds behind now. Mansell in 3rd position. A 45-second gap between Berger and Mansell. Then the battle you're looking at now, Nannini and Gugelmin following Michele Alboreto. But let us not forget that still in this race, while we have been looking at the action behind him at Stowe Corner, this is the almost incomparable Ayrton Senna, the man who's driven for Tollman, who's driven for Lotus, and is now driving for McLaren, and who this season feels that for the first time in his Grand Prix career, he has got a car which is enabling him to show his true talent. This is his 70th Grand Prix, from which Ayrton Senna has got 202 points. He's coming up now to lap Thierry Boutsen in the Benetton, and Boutsen is in 8th position. Down to Copse Corner, you can see Senna gaining hand over fist on Boutsen, and ahead of Boutsen is Nelson Piquet in 7th position. So Senna, with an identical Honda engine to the Lotus of Nelson Piquet, is about to lap the world champion of 1987 in his McLaren, Ayrton Senna. That's on the right, Piquet, who is in 7th place. In the middle, Boutsen. This is Berger, who is 13.5 seconds now behind Ayrton Senna. And the race settles down a bit. That's Capelli in the march, followed by Minardi, followed by Dalmas in the Lola. There goes Berger. Now, let's watch a bit of classic, I'm sure, lapping as Berger comes right up to... No, it's Philippe Alliot, I apologise. It's Philippe Alliot in the Lola. And Alliot is in 18th position, so he's being lapped for the 2nd time by Gerhard Berger, or about to be. Well, as Berger passes Michele Alboreto, here is a replay of Gugelmin, Maurizio Gugelmin, moving ahead of Michele Alboreto to take 5th position. And it happened at the complex. Alboreto runs a little wide, Gugelmin dives up the inside, is back on the racing line by the right-hander and up into 5th place. Yes,
that was purely self-inflicted by Alboreto, and that is Capelli coming into the pits. Now, is this for a fresh set of wet tyres? Because the conditions certainly aren't ready for dry tyres. Well, somebody brave enough. The actual racing line is now dry. And I tell a lie, having had another look at the track, I think he probably should go for dry tyres.
No, I think he was just changing. It looked to me as though he just changed one tyre. He certainly didn't change all 4 of them. So he's obviously on a full set of wets. And Ivan Capelli in the 2nd march, who was in 9th position, rejoins the race as we look at Gerhard Berger in 2nd place. And on lap 35 out of 65, it's Senna now nearly 16 seconds ahead of Berger. The race pattern is established at the front unless either Senna or Berger have problems. Nigel Mansell in 3rd position. Nannini is 4th. Gugelmin is 5th. This is Senna, the race leader. And then behind Gugelmin in 5th place, Michele Alboreto, the last potential point scorer in 6th position. Everybody has been lapped up to Michele Alboreto, who is in 6th place, but it's Piquet 7th, Boutsen 8th, Capelli 9th, Warwick 10th.
And now the track really is starting to dry, and it becomes a very critical decision for the drivers on when to risk going on to dry tyres. As well as the track conditions, they had to take into account the further possibility of rain, because in the normal way, if the clouds have gone and there's not going to be any more rain, the earlier you change the better. Senna now, you see Senna looking for wet parts of the track to try and cool his tyres down, reduce the wear on the wets, but when it comes to the corners, he's got to go onto the dry line to get the grip.
And as he does so, behind him, the lapped Nelson Piquet in the yellow Lotus Honda, with right behind him in 8th position Thierry Boutsen in the Benetton Ford, who of course has also been lapped. Ayrton Senna well on his way now to another victory. Nannini is fastest on the course at the moment, 1:24.1, and those are slick tyres waiting to be put at an appropriate point on one of the Williams cars as Capelli comes into the pits again in the march.
And you can see there, the track is really quite dry around Cox. Well, Capelli, his second lap on the trot that he's been into the pits, so I think he's got some sort of problem that is more acute than just tyres.
Mansell, is it going to be Mansell who stops for slick, dry tyres? It doesn't look to me as though the course is quite appropriate for them yet, and they haven't actually got those tyres out in the correct position on the pit lane for Mansell to be able to dive in between them, stop, and let the mechanics try to beat an 8-second time, which is a good one for a pit stop.
Well, on this side of the track, round here where Nigel is through the chicane and then through Woodcut and up to Cox, and he's going for the wet bit to cool the tyres, and quite right, this is good driving by Nigel Mansell. He's keeping away from the dry line wherever possible, trying to make the soft compound wet tyres last as long as he possibly can. But at the same time, I'm sure he is now giving a lot of thought to when he can change, because historically it has proved that he who has the bottle to change early usually benefits from doing that. And certainly there at Beckett's, I think if he ran a little bit wider, he would have found even more dry road.
Well, this is lap 37, and Nigel Mansell
again going for the wet bit.
Sorry, Nigel Mansell is 37 seconds now behind Gerhard Berger in second place. There's Nannini charging hard. Of course, he's had to recover, or try to recover, and build up his momentum again after having spun down to 4th position, losing 3rd to Nigel Mansell. Alboreto now is the next man to be targeted by Ayrton Senna, the race leader, to lap him, and Alboreto is in 6th position. It's Senna, Berger, Mansell, Nannini, Gugelmin, Alboreto. And down in the pit lane, Alain Prost is waiting to talk to Barry Gill.
Alan, we've seen you win here at Silverstone twice. Today it didn't seem possible you're going to win a 3rd time. What happened?
I did a bad start because of the clutch. We had for the first time the carbon clutch on my car. I don't know, because it was wet, maybe it did not work very well. I stalled the engine, and then I was very lucky to start again. And I was very afraid in the traffic the first 2 laps because of the water coming out of the wheel. And then the setup of the car was absolutely a disaster, so I could not take any risk, and I mean, I had no chance to get some points or to win the race, so I preferred to stop. I didn't want to take any risk today. The championship is still open, so there's no point to break my legs.
Alan, I think a very sensible position. There'll be another time to win here, won't there?
I hope next year anyway, no problem.
Thank you, Alan.
As you look at Ayrton Senna leading and coming up to lap the 6th place man, Michele Alboreto, Nigel Mansell is slowly cutting into the lead that Gerhard Berger has over him. Berger in 2nd position is now 19.7 seconds behind Ayrton Senna, and they are on the 39th lap. That's Boutsen, Thierry Boutsen, in 8th position, has been lapped. He is ahead of Derek Warwick by some 27 seconds, so things are getting quite spread out. There we are, Senna leading Berger by 18 seconds.
And a new fastest lap of the race by Nigel Mansell, who's still charging on and reducing the gap with Berger, but it's too big at the moment for us to get excited about it. But Mansell, as we would expect of him, giving it everything he's got.
Well, as you watch Senna, who has lapped Alboreto, who is in 6th position. Now there is Mansell, and it is so heartening to see that he has got the fastest lap in the race, 127 miles an hour, and that compares with a lap record, his own lap record, of 153 miles an hour. And so that difference between 127 and 153, which will diminish as the course dries out, nevertheless gives you an indication of how appalling the conditions have been. Mansell now revelling as Boutsen retires. Thierry Boutsen out of the British Grand Prix, and this is lap 40. I don't know what the problem is. That's steam coming from the rear of the car, but for whatever reason, Boutsen, who was in 8th position, is out. That means that Derek Warwick moves up to 8th, Nakajima to 9th, Chiva to 10th, Patrese to 11th, and Cappy to 12th. As you watch Nigel Mansell moving up on the young charger Stefano Modena, and Frank Williams is looking raptly at the monitor in the Williams pit. He's aware of the fact that Mansell is on his way. 22 seconds between Senna and Berger, 37 seconds between Berger and Mansell, who is in 3rd position. That's Alex Caffey. Here is Mansell, who has passed Modena, Stefano Modena, the young Italian who is in 14th place and has been lapped once so far. The cobby, good-looking lines of the Williams Judd, and this is the prettiest car on the course, in my opinion, the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger. But even Berger's talent, well, Nigel Mansell, Berger, there is the board of Berger, and it says slow. I suspect that the Ferrari team are getting telemetry messages from the engine, the V6 turbocharged engine of Berger's Ferrari, and they are worried about fuel consumption. As Berger looks for the wet bits on the course, he's going to see, has seen that slowdown signal, and Mansell, who has now cut the gap between himself in 3rd place and Berger in 2nd place to 35 seconds, will benefit from that, because the Judd is not going to have any fuel consumption problems at all. It is a 3.5 litre car, there it is, and Mansell is carrying as much fuel as he wants to carry, whereas the turbo cars are only allowed 150 litres. And by the way, Nelson Piquet has now passed Michele Alboreto, who is clearly in trouble, and we have a Lotus Honda, that of Nelson Piquet, the world champion, in 6th place. Race order, lap 41. Senna leads, Berger 2nd, Mansell 3rd, Nannini 4th, Gugelmin 5th, Piquet is in 6th position, and Senna has lapped everybody up to Gugelmin in 5th place.
And Mansell, you saw there once again, still looking for the wet bits of the track, and this is intelligent, sensible driving, which of course reflects his experience. And there is Nelson Piquet, who has moved up into 6th place ahead of Michele Alboreto.
Let me say this very quickly. Piquet is closer to Senna than he was. Senna, of course, has lapped him. I'm hypothesizing, I've got no hard information, but from the way that Piquet is hanging on to Ayrton Senna, I'm imagining that Senna may in fact be slowing up a little, perhaps because of fuel consumption problems. The Honda technicians said yesterday that if the weather today was as it was forecast to be, and it is, they would have real fuel consumption problems. Well, we'll see. Of course, Piquet has got the same engine, Honda V6 Turbo, as Senna, but Senna has been going a lot quicker and is indeed a full lap ahead of Piquet.
Yes, I mean, the cynical, the temptation is to have a cynical view, and that is that Piquet didn't go fast enough in the first bit of the race to wear his tyres out, and therefore he's got an advantage now, because clearly, and he's looking for the wet bits there, but clearly now the speed of the various cars is going to depend more than anything else on what sort of condition their wet weather tyres are in. And maybe Piquet would probably rejoin to that by saying when he looked after his tyres, but I doubt whether he's going to put a lap back on Senna, because that's what he'd have to do to win the race.
The first three are now on lap 43, and Mansell is really cutting deep into the lead that Gerhard Berger in second place has over him, because the gap is now down to 32 seconds as you look at Eddie Cheever there in 10th position. But it's Senna now, 20 seconds ahead of Berger. That is Derek Warwick, who is 8th in the Arrows Megatron, ahead of his teammate Eddie Cheever, who is 10th, and they are sandwiching the Yellow Lotus of Satoru Nakajima, who is in 9th position. Mansell carves past Alex Caffey, who is in 12th position, to lap him, and just watch that difference. Mansell is getting closer and closer to Gerhard Berger. It's still half a minute, but it's 2 seconds in the last lap. And there are still, we are on lap 44, so there are still 21 laps to go. And that means to say that if Mansell goes on as he is going, he not only can catch Berger in second place, but will catch Berger. And what an absolutely magnificent comeback that would be. It is already, but it would be heightened. Race order, Senna, lap 44, leads Berger by 31 seconds. In third position is the man you're watching in the background as he laps on Arnoux. And by the way, in the other Ligier, Stefan Johansson failed to qualify. So Senna leading Berger, who is 32 seconds ahead of Mansell, who is followed by Nannini 4th, Gugelmin 5th, Piquet 6th in the points, Alboreto 7th, a lap behind. Warwick is 8th, Nakajima is 9th, Cheever is 10th, Patrese is 11th, and Caffey is in 12th position. Julian Bailey is in 17th place in the Tyrrell. Mansell down the Hanger Straight at about 180 miles an hour, even in these conditions, into the 5th gear, 150 mile an hour Stowe corner. And Berger has again, I can tell you, I can look along the pit lane from here, and I can tell you that Berger has again had a very strong visual pit signal from his Ferrari team. Slow, it says. There it is.
Yes, I'm sure that's to do with fuel consumption, because somehow I get the feeling that if Senna was in debit on fuel and over his limit, then I'm quite sure that Berger would have had to have stayed with him when they were racing hard together in the first 25 laps or so of the race.
Well, we have the interesting situation at the moment of Gerhard Berger, the Ferrari driver of 1987, being caught by his next year's teammate Nigel Mansell, who's now again gone fastest, 1 minute 23.8. And I'll tell you in a moment what the gap is between Senna and Berger, and then more importantly between Berger and Mansell, because I have little doubt that Senna is on his way to his 4th Grand Prix victory, but I have a great deal of doubt about who is going to be second.
Well, I think now we may be getting into tyre changing time, because suddenly, although the wet tyres are getting more and more worn, everybody's lap time has started to come down, and that signifies to me that the line is really beginning to dry out. You can see there past the pits, which is right below our position, the line is absolutely bone dry. It's not the case around the back of the circuit, of course.
In 3 laps, Nigel Mansell has taken 10 seconds out of the lead that Gerhard Berger, that you are looking at there, is Mansell, had over him. Sorry, that's Patrese there. There is Nigel Mansell, and the gap is tumbling down. This is really exciting. Well, the gap now is 19 seconds. Just look at it. It's come down from 35 seconds to 19 seconds. The combination of Berger mandatorily having to go slower because he's been told to, or he will be out of the race by running out of fuel in the closing stages, and Nigel charging Mansell on his way in the 3.5 litre Williams car The gap is falling all the time.
Yes, and Mansell quite clearly the quickest car on the circuit at the moment. Ferrari pit crew there getting ready for a potential tyre change, and I certainly think that people should be thinking about putting slicks on now, not necessarily putting them on immediately, but getting that thought in the mind and trying to work out when. There, once again, it says stay out, I imagine, slow, but he can't afford to go very slowly because Mansell is really on a charge. There he is, still sliding about a fair bit of understeer there, coming out and then doing the proper thing, heading straight for the wet patch. Mansell, of all the cars I've observed in this race, has done the best effort on keeping to the wet part to keep those tyres protected.
Indeed he is, and it's 12 seconds now. Do you remember the British Grand Prix of 1987 and how Nigel Mansell closed on Nelson Piquet after he had had his pit stop and lost 25 seconds to take the Brazilian on the 62nd lap out of 65. He's going faster and faster. Now the gap has come down from over 35 seconds to 12 seconds. It's still Senna leading. It's still that man, Gerhard Berger, in the Ferrari in second place, but it's not going to be very much longer before in the same shot you're going to see the red Ferrari and the multicoloured, basically white Williams Judd of Nigel Mansell. And when Mansell can see that scarlet Ferrari in front of him, that will be all he needs. And now into the pits comes Michele Alboreto.
And it'll be interesting to see if he comes for dry tyres. In the meantime, Piquet has now done fastest lap of the race. Piquet has obviously looked after his tyres well, because speed now depends just on in what sort of condition your tyres are, and he's going for slicks. So Alboreto may well be doing a clever thing, getting first onto slicks. It'll take him a couple of laps to get decent heat into them and also to learn the line, but in about 3 laps time we'll look at Michele's speed and we'll get an idea then as to whether slicks are going to be as effective as wet tyres in these rather marginal conditions.
And Michele Alboreto will have to take this lap comparatively gingerly. He knows where the dry line is, but he doesn't know exactly how his preheated slick tyres are going to react to the conditions. Meantime, Ayrton Senna has just radioed his pit to ask them what, in their opinion, he should do about tyres, and Ron Dennis has told Ayrton Senna to stay out on the course whilst they can judge how Alboreto goes on slicks. It is going to be a really entrancing finish to this race, as now Senna is going to let Piquet, is he going to let Piquet through? You remember earlier on I remarked on the fact that Senna was going slower, which was manifested by the fact that he wasn't pulling away from Piquet in the Lotus. Now Piquet is right with him. We know that Senna is concerned about his tyre wear. He's got a very considerable lead now of 54 seconds over Gerhard Berger, but Berger in the Ferrari has only 4 seconds ahead of Mansell. Nigel Mansell is almost within sight of Gerhard Berger, just 4 seconds, and we are on lap 49, and Senna, there he is, the race leader, is worried about his tyres. There is the second place man, 54 seconds behind, Gerhard Berger, coming up to lap Nicola Larini, the young Italian in the turbocharged Osella. Race order, lap 49. Senna, and look at Mansell, there is Mansell. The last car of this line, there is Berger, and there is Nigel Mansell, and it's certainly not 4 seconds now. Mansell has got the Ferrari in his sights. He dodges past Julian, no he doesn't, that's Julian Bailey's 3.5 litre Tyrrell. Bailey, driving on the Silverstone that he knows well, is in 18th position. And now Nigel Mansell is closing hand over fist on Gerhard Berger, and this has been a truly stirring drive, because Nigel Mansell has come up from 7th place on the first lap having started on the starting grid from 11th place. He started 11th. He was 7th at the end of the first lap. He's moved up to 6th, the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, and very shortly, if he goes on the way he is going, on lap 50 out of 65, he's going to go up into 2nd place. Berger, I remind you, is concerned about his fuel consumption and is being instructed lap by lap to go slower. Ayrton Senna, in front of both these drivers, is worried about his tyres. Should he come in? He's been told to stay out. And behind them, it is Nannini 4th, Gugelmin 5th, and Piquet in 6th position. This is the battle. And Mansell and Club. And it's starting to rain again as Mansell goes through and nearly off and up into 2nd position. Nigel Mansell dodges right over to the right-hand side of the track. It is in 2nd position.
Now that's very interesting. The crowd go wild. They see Mansell into 2nd place. Tremendously popular stuff. Fighting drive. He's had such a bad season, and it's really great to see him enjoying himself when things have really been a bit dismal. However, during all that time when he was chasing Berger, I was watching Alboreto's progress, and Alboreto was going just about as quick and getting up to speed as the cars on wets, which meant that he had made the right decision, except that the fact that the rain has started to spot. It's not raining hard yet, but if the rain holds off, because it looks all a bit marginal at the minute, then Alboreto is right. If it continues to rain, which it's still doing, but not hard, then Alboreto has been very unlucky.
Here's the replay of Nigel Mansell taking Gerhard Berger and 2nd place. It may be wet, it may be on the chilly side, but the British crowd is seeing what it came here to see. Their hero Nigel Mansell doing almost in 1988 what he so brilliantly did in 1987. And only 1 place now separates him from the hat-trick. I don't think he's going to get it, but meantime there is action in the Ferrari pit. And Ferrari have decided that they are not going to offer slicks. If anybody comes in, they're going to offer another set of wets. Frank Williams. Oh, what a marvellous drive this is. Nigel Mansell has left Berger struggling in his wake. The Austrian absolutely helpless. He's had to let Nigel Mansell pass, not only because of the brilliant way Nigel is driving, but because he is hamstrung, Berger, by the fact that he dare not go any faster or he will run out of fuel. And there he is now, the gap between Nigel Mansell and Berger, who is about to lose a place to Gugelmin. Gugelmin is now closing right up. The race order on lap 52 in this riveting race is Senna. Mansell is 65 seconds behind him. Berger is in 3rd position. In 4th position it is Nannini. Then Gugelmin in 5th place. Piquet is 6th and Warwick is 7th.
Berger certainly appears to be in trouble. I suspect it's a combination of his tyres being completely shot, his wet, and maybe the fact that he's had to wind right back on his boost to preserve fuel.
And because of it, he's now had to let Alessandro Nannini through. You just saw the Italian, and we've got the fascinating situation of one turbo car in the lead, and it is that of Ayrton Senna. In 2nd position behind him in a 3.5-litre car is Mansell. Then it's Nannini in 3rd place. Berger is 4th. Gugelmin is 5th. And Piquet is in 6th place, and it's beginning to look as though we are not going to see a Ferrari in the top 6, because as you can see there, Berger, who is now down to 4th place, is being caught by the 5th place man, Maurizio Gugelmin, the Brazilian.
Yes, and the rain has started to get a bit harder now, because up until this moment it still looked that Alboreto could end up with a big advantage, and there's a Ferrari coming into the pits. And that is Michele Alboreto, presumably coming back in for wets. Now, I wonder if he's not being a little bit hasty. Having bottled himself with the wrong decision, I think he should have gambled maybe for another couple of laps, because if the rain stops now, he will really kick himself. he's flown it anyway if wets are what are required, and therefore he should stay put. And it was interesting because Senna asked the right question to McLaren's, and Ron Dennis gave him the right answer, and that was to wait and see. But for the wrong reasons, because really they were looking at the track conditions just to see how well he went on slicks. But the weather intervened, and those who didn't, because I have to say Alboreto probably made the best decision of all, but when it suddenly rained on him again, he got unlucky. Because it's a golden rule in motor racing, you do what the conditions are at the time, anticipating whether it will rain, not rain, or stop raining or whatever, is always a recipe for disaster.
Well, on lap 54, let's take a breath and look at the way things are going. As Gugelmin catches Gerhard Berger, who is in 4th position. There's the pit signal. Senna is leading by over a minute. Nigel Mansell 2nd. Nannini is in 3rd place. Gugelmin gets past Gerhard Berger, who therefore goes down to 5th position. Gugelmin up into 4th place. In 6th place is Nelson Piquet. In 7th position is Derek Warwick. 8th is Chiva. 9th is Patrese. 10th is Nakajima. 11th is Cappy. 12th is Modena. Alboreto's gone down to 13th place and now lower with another tyre change. Julian Bailey is still running, 2 laps down in 18th position. And Ayrton Senna is on his 55th lap. Just 10 laps separates him from his 4th Grand Prix victory of 1988 with a very commanding lead. There he is in the background, still with Nelson Piquet tucked up behind him and going through to unlap himself. Piquet unlapping himself now. Looks dramatic, but I remind you that Nelson Piquet was already nearly 3 miles behind Ayrton Senna, because this Silverstone circuit is 2.97 miles long. Ayrton Senna then, he can now coast home. He knows his tyres are going to last him because of the return of the wet conditions. He will be happy about fuel. He has a 59-second lead over Nigel Mansell in 2nd place, who is 11 seconds ahead of Nannini, who is 7 seconds ahead of Gugelmin, who is 3 seconds ahead of Berger, who is 9 seconds ahead of Piquet. So we have 3 turbocharged cars in the first 3 and 3 normally aspirated 3.5-litre cars in the first 6, not the first 3. Ayrton Senna driving beautifully, Copse Corner. Now up to Maggots. Nakajima, by the way, in the 2nd of the Lotus cars, has slowed down considerably. He's in 10th position now, with Riccardo Patrese ahead of him. You may have been wondering, incidentally, those of you who knew that it was our intention to have cameras on the 2 March cars, why you haven't seen any in-car pictures. The answer is that March were so pleased with their 5th and 6th positions on the grid that they said they were sorry they didn't want to carry the cameras. They caused extra wind resistance, maybe not very much, but enough to affect the performance of their cars a little bit, and they needed every horsepower they could get. So, no camera cars, and for that matter, we've had problems with our planned helicopter coverage because the cloud cover is so low, but it hasn't detracted from the quality of a superb race, which is now on lap 56 with the magnificent Ayrton Senna in the very low line MP4 oblique 4 McLaren, designed by Steve Nichols and his colleagues at McLaren International in Woking. And that is the slippery Adrian Newey designed 3.5-litre Judd-powered March of Maurizio Gugelmin. And Gugelmin now in 4th position. And Gugelmin thus far this year, his highest place has been 8th. They've had 1 points position this year because Capelli finished in 5th position, and it looks as though they're going to finish in the points again, which for this team only in its 2nd year of its return to Grand Prix racing because of course March was in it in the very early days. Jackie Stewart, Chris Amon and many other notable drivers, including Ronnie Peterson, drove for March, but they retired from Grand Prix racing to concentrate on American racing in its various classes, and particularly Indianapolis, where they've been enormously successful. Well, they're back. Robin Hurd, the boss of March, was here yesterday. I think actually he's driving in a rally today, but he'll be a happy man when he gets this news. If Gugelmin stays where he is now, in 4th position, 25-year-old Maurizio Gugelmin from Curitiba in Brazil, who was Formula 4 British champion in 1982, and then Formula 3 British champion, and won the prestigious Formula 3 race in Macau in 1984. And he's translating himself from Formula 3000 in the last 2 seasons into Grand Prix racing with very considerable success. And it couldn't happen to a nicer man. 4th position. Ahead of him is Nannini in 3rd place in the Benetton. Mansell, who is now 53 seconds behind Senna. Senna in the McLaren, Mansell in the Williams, and Nigel Mansell is back. And probably, if you think ahead to the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim in 2 weeks' time, the Williams is going to be even better there than it is here, because absolute speed is not as important at Hockenheim as it is at Silverstone. There are some 2 chicanes and the tricky infield section, which will benefit the nimbleness which the Williams now clearly has as a result of its conventional suspension. And hopefully we can look for great things from Nigel and Williams in his closing races for Williams before he drives with Berger in the Ferrari team in 1989. And won't that be something to see? Lap 58. Nigel is actually living in a motorhome here at Silverstone with his wife Roseanne, his daughter Chloe, who had an argument with the bath and split her head open the other day and had stitches in it and is now perfectly okay, fortunately. So he hasn't got very far to go home when he's finished this race, and I'm sure when he does so, he's going to be a very happy man indeed, because he will have done not as much as he could have expected to do, but far, far more than he could have expected to do, because Nigel started, I remind you again, from 11th position on the grid as a result of that dreadful Friday that he had with the reactive suspension. He's fought his way up to 2nd, and there's only 1 car ahead of him, which is a turbocharged McLaren. Prost is out, Berger is behind him in the Ferrari, Alboreto is behind him in the Ferrari, and Mansell, for the first time this year, has had an opportunity to demonstrate his talent in a 3.5 litre car against the other normally aspirated engine drivers. And we are on lap 59 now, not far to go in this 65 lap race, with Mansell coming down on Alliot, Philippe Alliot, and Satoru Nakajima in the Yellow Lotus. Nakajima is in 10th position and Alliot is in 15th place. And Nigel Mansell whistles past the turbocharged Honda-powered Lotus with absolutely no trouble at all. And Nakajima actually prefers fast circuits to slow ones, and is being considerably troubled by Philippe Alliot, actually.
And Mansell still doing it right, going to the wet patches whenever he can, keep those tyres cool, and they don't look too warm. And I've been, as a little check, I've been watching Alboreto's time since he went back onto a new set of wet tyres, and it would appear that he doesn't have a big advantage. Certainly over Mansell he doesn't, because Mansell's lapping just as quickly as him, despite the fact that his tyres have done quite a few laps on a relatively dry road, and wet tyres don't like that. They wear very fast, they overheat. But Nigel has certainly done a very good job all through the race, or ever since there was a dry line, in seeking the wet patch. You see him doing it again there, not following the full width of the road.
So there he is, ahead of him Senna, 49 seconds ahead. The gap has come down a lot. It's come down by over 10 seconds between Senna in the lead on lap 61 now, and Mansell in second position, who's yet to complete his 60th lap. But it's nothing to get too aerated about, because Ayrton Senna is very clearly driving his race, knowing exactly what the situation is by virtue of radio communication with the pit and visual signals from the pit board. He is on his 61st lap now, so he's got the 62nd, 63rd, 64th and 65th laps to go. 4 laps of this just under 3-mile circuit. 12 miles separate Senna, who is now coming up to Gerhard Berger in 6th position, to lap the man who led him and who he caught and passed, and has now fallen right back because of fuel consumption problems with the Ferrari. Nelson Piquet, in fact, is up into 5th position. So extreme is Berger's plight, because Nelson Piquet now has got ahead of Berger, and the race order in the closing stages of the British Grand Prix round 8 of the World Championship is Senna leading Mansell, with Nannini 3rd in the Benetton, so it's McLaren, Williams, Benetton. A 4th make in the 4th position, Gugelmin. Then yet another one, make, a 5th make, Lotus of Nelson Piquet is in 5th position. And the 6th make in the 6 top places, Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. Lapped in 7th place is Derek Warwick, who could still finish in the points if any of the 6 men ahead of him have trouble. Eddie Cheever, his teammate, is 2 seconds behind Warwick in 8th position. Riccardo Patrese is still running in the conventionally suspended Williams in 9th place. Nakajima in the 2nd Lotus is 10th. Caffey is 11th. Modena is in 12th position. And Julian Bailey, 2 laps down, is showing signs of finishing in his British Grand Prix run in 18th position. So Senna has now lapped the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, lapped the 6th place man. He's on now, lap 62. 3 laps to go at the end of this one, in what has been yet another copybook drive by the Brazilian Ayrton Senna, who won in San Marino, who won in Canada, who won in Detroit, who was 2nd in Mexico and 2nd in France, who had to retire, or rather was excluded from the Brazilian Grand Prix through no fault of his own, who retired through his own fault from Monaco, but in his first season as a McLaren driver has demonstrated that with his teammate Alain Prost, and as shown by their positions in the Drivers' World Championship, 1st and 2nd, he is very definitely almost in a class of his own with Prost. He's on lap 63 now, and Berger jogging round by his standards in the background. 6th position. Of course, he's been lapped. He's on the same lap, Berger, as Derek Warwick. The gap between... Actually, Berger could lose that 6th position to Derek Warwick, who is only 10 seconds behind him. We may well have 2 British drivers in the top 6 places, because Warwick is charging now for 6th position in the hope of catching and passing Gerhard Berger, and in the hope, Derek Warwick, of keeping ahead of his teammate Eddie Cheever. We've got an excellent scrap for 6th, 7th and 8th positions between Berger, Warwick and Cheever, as we look at Nigel Mansell, who is on his 63rd lap in what, with absolutely no disrespect to a brilliant drive by Ayrton Senna, has, for me, and I'm sure the majority of the people here, been the drive of the day, said he, finishing the sentence quickly, because there is Gerhard Berger in 6th place, followed by Derek Warwick in 7th place, followed by Eddie Cheever in 8th place, and you'll be able to see for yourself how close the gap is. There is Berger, 6th. There is Warwick 7th, and there is Cheever in 8th position. That is Eddie Cheever, the American. The Arrows Megatrons, which have gone so much better this year, as Nicola Larini pulls over to retire. The Arrows Megatrons, which have gone so much better this year as a result of having lower boost, 2.5 bar, as opposed to 4.5 bar. And Patrese is joining in the fun, because Patrese in 9th position is catching Cheever. So almost together in 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th places are Berger, Warwick, Cheever and Patrese. And not together at all in terms of being with someone, but very much together in terms of being in control of himself and the car, is Ayrton Senna, who is coming under the bridge into the complex, the left and now the right, to go into the finishing straight to start his 65th and last lap on his way to winning his 4th Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix of 1988.
Yes, well, he had to work hard for it in the early stages, but from about 1/3 distance onwards, it was back to the McLaren demonstration for Ayrton Senna. He had a big challenge from Berger. Berger got away first, led for a long time, but maybe at the expense of using too much fuel. And the feature of the race, though, certainly was the marvellous drive from Nigel Mansell, and what pleasure it must have given him. He's had a really rotten season so far, but the car has run well today. The wet weather was a help to him because it was a leveller against the turbo engines, and Nigel fought and battled his way through to second. He drove intelligently, looked after his tyres in conditions where that was very important.
Yeah, but look at this behind him. Senna is going to come through and win, but now Derek Warwick is harrying, and this is going to be the last lap, I remind you, because he's harrying Gerhard Berger, who is in 6th position. Derek Warwick is going to go through and take 6th position in the closing stages of the last lap from Gerhard Berger. No, he's not. Berger is still in front of him, and behind Warwick is Cheever. As Senna comes through, and there's Patrese going for it. Patrese is going to take Cheever on the inside. No, the positions remain the same as Ayrton Senna exits Woodcote for the 65th time to win the British Grand Prix, and Derek Warwick is 6th, and Cheever is 7th, and Patrese is 8th, and down goes Berger.
And Berger was out of fuel. That was why Berger slowed down. I think Berger just missed it by 100 yards, and he had a big cough and a splutter.
And Mansell finishes in 2nd place. Well, we've had some Grand Prix this year which have been dominated by the McLarens. They have dominated this one too, because Senna has won brilliantly. But here is the man that many people will think is the man of the day, Nigel Mansell, who is back, and he knows it. He's waving to the crowd, and the crowd wave back. But the British Grand Prix was won by Ayrton Senna, the 4th win for Senna this year, the 8th win for McLaren this year. Senna now has won the same number of Grand Prix, there he is, as Alain Prost. A magnificent 2nd place for Nigel Mansell, who in the end was only 27 seconds behind Senna. Then it's Nannini, Gugelmin, Piquet and Berger with Warwick.
Nigel Mansell gets his first point of the season. I'm sure that Ferrari are now even more convinced of the great deal they've done in signing him for next season. But Ayrton Senna wins, Nannini was 3rd, and you'll see that the championship position now is even tighter, but between the 2 McLaren drivers, of course. Prost out of today's race, and now leads the championship by just 6 points from his teammate as they go to Germany.